Another moment, bless the chance to just improve myself. Another moment, bless the chance to just improve myself.
Self-improvement, motivation.
Absolutely.
Thankful for the love share. Another moment blessed. Whoa. Another moment blessed. Whoa. Another moment blessed. Whoa. Another moment blessed. Whoa. Another moment blessed. Chance to just improve myself. Another moment blessed. The chance to just improve myself. Another moment blessed. The chance to just improve myself. Another moment blessed. The chance to just improve myself. Another moment blessed. The chance to just improve myself. La 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 la. Oh, 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 oh. Just improve myself. Self-improve myself. Improve.
You're watching the Y2K show, where they play my kind of videos. You're watching the Y2K show, where they play my kind of videos.
Quiet on the set. Quiet. Quiet on the set.
Soy Roberto, El Favorito Gringo, mi pelo es blanco, hecho en San Mateo. Dime cuando ven a México, soy una California oso, más grande de mis sueños. Es un nuevo año, nuevo tiempo, no ratos or latas, no preguntas, preguntas menso. Inteligente pero soy poco loco, fiestas.
Thank you for watching the Y2K Show.
Nothing here. I don't hear anything playing. I don't see the show started.
I'm having the same problem.
Thank you for watching the Y2K Show.
I just muted my phone in the head.
I want to welcome everybody here that's here already tonight. Turn that volume off.
That's right.
How you doing tonight? This is Papa Will with your host and also with the sponsor today, Michael Welch. We're having a whole bunch of technical difficulties. You don't know how to put the phone down. Put the phone down. Turn it off. Turn the phone off. Turn the phone off. Turn the phone. You ain't trying to turn it
What
off.
do you think? I just muted my whole phone.
Shut up. I said turn the phone off.
That's
Now
what
put the phone down and leave that alone and stay over there texting. Don't read nothing because once the sound.
I wasn't reading anything. I was turning this
Hey,
off.
you didn't.
That's
I
what
had to
was
turn
doing.
it off. You were turning it off too slow. So don't talk to me.
You're watching the Y2K Show, where they play my kind of videos.
Soy Roberto, El Favorito Gringo, mi pelo es blanco, hecho en San Mateo. Dime cuando ven a México, soy una California oso, más grande de mis sueños. Es un nuevo año, nuevo tiempo, no ratos or latas, no preguntas, preguntas menso. Inteligente pero soy poco loco, fiestas.
Welcome to the the multi-problem show tonight. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I don't have much more problems going on here with this buffer. I got to also check and see over here what our connection is. I'm starting to feel like I shouldn't do shows after like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, let me try this. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just get us hooked up here. And this guy here that needs to be skipped. Yeah, check. Oh boy. you in the process. This ain't the thing I do all day while I sit up here and wait for this to happen.
What's on there?
So when I said turn your phone off, that meant take it off the internet because I wasn't getting anywhere with three things on the internet.
This one, mine was on this own thing.
But they're showing that there's
That's
two
why I
inside
said,
of
that's why I couldn't even make sure the other one I had to my house. Nothing on the I was turning the sound off my phone. Period. That's what I was trying to do.
You got to see
Lately, one way I've been able to help keep my mental health a priority has been through therapy using BetterHelp. After graduating college and now being a young adult, therapy is so beneficial.
I'm going to read it with you guys. So I'm going to read it for the first time as I record this with you guys. I read the cover and this preface here in the next part of the cover. All right. And that's all I read so far. So I want to read that to you too. And before we get started. So it says here, at the end of the 15th century, the Spanish Inquisition forced many Jews to flee the country. All right, we got that already, that background, that story, what happened, right, with the Jews. We're talking about Sephardic Jews. We're not talking about same as what we think of Jews today in Israel or Ashkenazi type or ancestry. These are little bit different type of Jews. Most of these Jews were very dark-skinned people of color, Moorish Jews, Sephardic Moorish Jews. All right, and it says most adventurous took to the seas in ships bearing names such as Prophet Samuel and Shield of Abraham, and attacked and plundered the Spanish fleet as they carved out an empire in the New World in their quest for treasure, religious freedom, and revenge. All right, Jews. Filled with high seas adventures, Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean is the thrilling story of a hidden chapter in Jewish history and of the cruelty, terror, and greed that flourished during the age of discovery. Here we meet daring and colorful figures such as the great Jewish pirate Sinan, who was Barbarossa's second in command, and Abraham Cohen Enriquez, an arms dealer who used his cunning and economic muscle to find safe havens for other Jews. All right, so they were helping each other. I remember they had this whole network in the Atlantic, right, with their families, these port Jews, all right, and these Moors and their ships, all these captains. They had the trade going since ancient times, and they did it and prospered during colonial times with the same trade they had going. It says also included are the encounters of these swashbuckling Jews with other legendary pirates, such as Captain Morgan, and there are detailed portraits of cities stacked with high plunder, such as Port Royal, Jamaica. The Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean captures a gritty and glorious era of history and recounts the lives and characters of those Sephardic Jews. Boom, there you go. Sephardic Jews in the early New World, who through guile, bravery, and intrigue persevered to gain the rights that Jews in the Western world enjoy today. All right, so we're talking about Sephardic Jews and Muslim Moors, a lot of those together. And remember, if you saw part 4, if you didn't, we've already gone over the background. What was the general consensus of Sephardic Jews, or Portuguese Jews, or Spanish Jews? Was that they were very dark-skinned, very so-called black, yes.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not.
Continuing, it says here in the prologue, it says puzzling. A puzzling entry in a pirate journal jumped out at me. Invading Jamaica in 1643, William Jackson found the island's capital deserted, except for diverse Portuguese of the Hebrew nation who came up onto us seeking asylum and promised to show us where the Spaniards hid their gold. All right, so you see what's going on? I had always learned that early New World adventure was the province of Spanish and Portuguese conquistadors, and that they were all devout Catholics carrying the cross. So what were Portuguese Jews doing on a Spanish island seeking asylum with an English pirate? All right, so you hear what his confusion is, because the general mainstream is that they had us generalizing that, the Spanish and Portuguese were all the same. These are all white, Europeans, Catholics. They brought Christianity. They're all the same. They don't want us to think of this diverse group of people living in the Iberian Peninsula, who were actually mainly Sephardic Jews and Moorish Muslims at that time. And the Catholic, they were Catholics, but they were invading. They were they had a war going on there for years. We already know that. All right, so he's like, so what's going on? Why is this Portuguese Jew who's supposed to be Portuguese? Why ain't he siding with his Portuguese Catholic people? Why is he actually beefing with them and actually seeking asylum with an English pirate? And again, an English pirate, this person might be English. They might, in this book, I don't know if they're going to say he's a white person or anything, but again, remember, these Sephardic Jews, these Moors, these Huguenots, they were traveling all over Europe and settling in places like England, Ireland, Holland, and becoming English, Irish, Dutch. So English pirate, that doesn't tell us anything. You got to know who you're talking about. Give us a name, and then let's check his genealogy to see if he's really English. All right. So it says it was 1967. I had moved to Jamaica from New York and came upon Jackson's journal in the reading room of Jamaica's National Library while perusing contemporary accounts of the island's buccaneer beginnings. I was more than intrigued. I wanted an answer. What I next learned was startling. All right, what he learned was startling. Before England conquered Jamaica in 1655, the island belonged to the family of Christopher Columbus, who provided a haven for Jews. All right, Jamaica was what? A haven for Sephardic Moorish Jews, people of color, European people of color. All right. The leader of the Jewish community, the late Sir Neville Asheheim, went even further, telling me that Columbus was a Jew and that Jamaica's Jews trace their ancestry to the first settlers. All right. Jamaica's Jews, they trace, goes way back since colonial time. So again, we got another person from another place telling us Columbus was a so-called Jew. All right, Sephardi Moorish Jew. Yeah, he was a person of color. Columbus was not his name. We're looking into that. We're digging into that. We set out a name in the last video. Check it out. We're digging on that right now. Very interesting research I'm doing, and we're gonna have a future video on that. But in the meantime, we're learning, get into the basics of the foundation of everything, right? So this person doing research in Jamaica, he's finding out like a whole crazy history here that he didn't even know existed. He, again, he might be thinking these are all, light-skinned people, in his narrative, but we know better. We know how to dodge the hijack. So always dodge the hijack as I'm reading. Again, this is for the first time. So let's continue. It says, I was so beguiled by these findings that I would spend the next 4 decades following their lead and unfolding an unknown chapter in Jewish history. Forget the merchants of Venice. His New World cousins were adventurers after my own heart. Jewish explorers, conquistadors, cowboys, and yes, pirates. Pirates. Again, all those tags right there, all those professions, all those titles, right? Ways of life, I guess. I don't know. A lot of those included, we already know, people of color, right? We got to dodge the hijack constantly. Again, we got to see what you would call a so-called black person doing all this as being Jewish explorers, conquistadors, cowboys, and pirates. All right, we got to get off that black and white world, and it was all white people in Europe, and no, we got to kill all that. All right, we're trying to correct history so you can gain a better understanding of thyself, of yourself. 2. Forbidden to settle the New World, they came disguised as Christians. Remember, they were being called New Christians, but they were crypto secret Jews, Moors, Moriscos, and Marranos. They came disguised as Christians. They and other settlers were similar in spirit, but while the others came to conquer, convert the heathen, search for gold, or collect a bevy of Indian women, the Jews came to escape persecution and settle a land beyond the tentacles of the Inquisition. All right, so very interesting right here. He's saying that most of these Jews were, like, again, Sephardic Jews, Moorish Jews, were people of color. They were actually coming here and looking for a better life, supposedly, not just coming like the other conquerors or maybe the Catholics who were coming here and just abusing the people, collecting the gold, taking all the resources, taking the women. They saying they're different. We don't know that for exactly. I'm sure there was some of them who were doing evil things, because there are at the end of the day humans. But I guess in general, It seems they weren't trying to do that. They were actually, a lot of them we know were assimilating and amalgamating with the Indians. There was a lot of mixture with the Sephardic Jews and Moorish people that came, the cryptos, or the disguised Christians as they called them, with the Indians. All right. So it says the story begins with Columbus and the Age of Discovery, when secret Jews sailed with the explorers, marched with the conquistadors, and were among the first settlers in every new world colony. Again, they were what? Amongst the first settlers. This is very significant. This is, as we keep researching, we're going to see, well, we go to every settlement, every first colony here in America, every place that was colonized, and we're going to find these people. We're going to find Sephardic Jews, Morisco crypto, Moors, all that. We're going to find them here, settling in, getting into their trade, getting into their business, or whatever they were doing, sugar, trying to survive, trying to be able to practice their own, beliefs, all that in the new world. And they were the pioneers. All right, this early history is largely unknown because few then or since realized that these pioneers were Jewish. I told you, these pioneers were Jewish. All right, not just some Catholic, Christian, white person. All right, either. We got to break all those spells. Iberian Jews posed as new Christians from Portugal. Again, Iberian Jews posed as new Christians from Portugal. All right, the one settler group that was not required to prove their Catholic ancestry. Most Portuguese operating in the Spanish Empire were Christians. Again, most Portuguese, all of them. See, it wasn't a majority of Catholic Christians no, the Portuguese, that's what I'm trying to tell you. When you're reading about the colonial times, the conquista times, right? When the Spaniards and Portuguese came, all right? Again, they're letting you know in this book, most, I would say a lot, most of them, if not all of them, very few, all right? Most of them were actually Moorish, Sephardic, people of color, what they call Portuguese or Spanish, but they were Iberians, right? Iberian people. They were the ones operating in the Spanish Empire. They were the ones who were new Christians. So Columbus and all these people, you know how he brought Christianity. He's the Christ bearer. He was just doing that just to, survive for himself. These were crypto Jews, commonly called conversos, and many maintained their allegiance to their ancestral faith. So they would come with the cross, here, worship Jesus, right? And they wouldn't even do it. They knew that wasn't them. That wasn't part of their beliefs. They were esperandos, hopeful ones, who expected that the Messiah would soon come and that he, like them, would appear in the guise of a Christian and so forgive their apostasy. Oh, really? That's what they thought? Oh, really? I don't think that's all what they all thought, but that's even that's a little funny, right? So, all right, well, we'll betray and we'll switch up, and because Jesus is going to do it, or the Messiah. They didn't even say Jesus, right? They said the Messiah is going to do it. He's going to pose as a Christian, so we're going to be forgiven. All right. Until then, whatever it would take to get by in the enemy world was not deceit, but strength. All right. So whatever they needed to do to survive. So I don't know if this author is a descendant of these people. So it seems like he's trying to make them not sound so bad. They had to, who knows, but he's just trying to paint a better picture for them. Right? They had to do whatever it takes, even if they had to kill people, take other people's land, Indian land, convert other people, all that. As Esperandos, Jews in the New World lived and prospered. Unless exposed by the Inquisition, they were their graves with their masquerade intact. They went to their graves, right? So, they were fine as long as they didn't know, or the prophets, that say that, they're Jewish or they're practicing, or anybody knew, as long as they kept saying, I'm Christian, yeah, praise Jesus, they were fine. They were fine. And a lot of them took that to their graves. Nobody ever knew. And that's what happened in history. And we're just realizing now a lot of these people were actually, had this background. Though even death offered no assurance, as dead heretics were tried in absentia. If found guilty, their bodies were exhumed and burnt and their property confiscated. Wow. Arriving first as explorers and conquistadors, they and the Jewish pioneers who followed soon focused on a field of expertise that had sustained them and made them welcome in the diaspora. All right. So these people, not all were saints. A lot, again, they did whatever they had to do to survive in the enemy world, right? They were so-called explorers too, and conquistador, conquering, conquistadors, people of color, so-called black people. All right, check out my Columbus and his Negro Friends video from about 2-3 years ago. When we first just started this research and all that, and we went over some of the so-called black, famous black conquistadors. All right, that are known in history, but there was a lot more because a lot of the people we thought were white were actually so-called black. So it was a lot more. All right, and that included again Sephardic Jews and Moriscos, all these people, crypto Muslims, crypto Jews, a mercantile people. Jews in the New World went about their business as traders and ship owners, thus becoming the first merchant class in the Spanish Empire. As long as they pretended to be Christian and delivered the goods, no one questioned their religiosity too closely. They set up the first sugar factories. Who set up the first sugar factories and plantations? Sugar, right? Sugar factories, sugar, slavery, right? Plantation system. Kunta Kinte, right? They told us they brought Africans and they told us it was white people creating all this stuff. But it was actually Sephardic, people of color, Jews, Iberians, who set up the first sugar factories, pioneered grain, coffee, and tea cultivation, and traded sugar, tobacco, all right? Tobacco, remember the Indians, the Dutch tobacco companies and the Indians, the pictures of the Indians, the tobacco Indians. Who was doing all that? Also people of color. Gold and silver were covert Jews of the Iberian Peninsula. Covert. They had their networks set up over in Europe still. So they had a great network going back and forth with their covert family members back in the Iberian Peninsula. Covert, secret, undercover, covert, not in the open. First profits to the homeland were the underpinning of the mercantile system. Everything to and from the New World had to go via Seville or Lisbon. For most of the 16th century, the parties were content with the trade-off. The king needed the Jews to ensure his cash flow, all right? So they needed these people to handle the trade for them, to make sure the money and all of the commerce, the economy is going. They're handling the accounting and all that, right? And they needed him, the king of Portugal, who was a Catholic, right? Catholic empire, to keep the Inquisition at bay. However, once the trade network was established, Jews became expendable. So once the Portuguese established their own trade, started taking over, they were like, you know what, we don't need you guys anymore, but thanks for helping us, right? What happened? A lot of those became so-called Negroes. We don't need you guys anymore. At the close of the 16th century, Inquisition fires caught up with them in Mexico and Peru, where Jewish merchants controlled the silver trade. Holy inquisitors were called in to purify the bottom line. All right, so what they were doing, again, we've read this already. We're going to get more into the Sephardic Jewish people who were in Mexico and Peru and these Latin countries. We're going to get into that. Don't worry, future videos. I got plenty of documentation on that. But basically what started happening, they started, okay, after they didn't need them no more, after they already had established themselves in these places and established a trade and had a good business going back and forth with Europe, the Catholic Empire was like, all right, thanks guys, now you guys got to bounce, or they clean them or send them to plantations or work, slavery or whatever, or made them just as servants. Jewish leaders were burnt. All right, well, there we go, we're going to get descriptive. Their wealth was confiscated and Christians took over the fabulously rich silver trade. New World Jews got the message. More than profit, their survival in the coming century would require a haven outside the reach of the Grand Inquisitor. Unable to secure a homeland on their own, covert Jews conspired with Holland. Covert Jews, right? Sephardic, Moorish people, cryptos, they got together with Holland. We already know that was another haven. That was the New Jerusalem. Remember Remember, if you haven't seen all the parts of this series, go back. We've already covered all this. And you know how prominent these same people, these covert Jews, were already in Holland and England to seize a New World colony. All right, they what? They got together. They got together, right? It was then that a handful of Dutch Jews, so we got covert Jews, New World Jews, Dutch Jews, it's all the same people. All right, all Sephardic, Iberian, Moorish, crypto, Marrano, Moriscos, by a warrior rabbi. Says it was then that a handful of Dutch Jews, inspired by a warrior rabbi, took it upon themselves to change things. Their generation came of age in the early 1600s when Jews were forbidden in England, France, and most of Europe. All right, again, these same people being persecuted all over Europe. You see, they have a long history before America. And in the Spanish Empire, anyone caught Judaizing was liable to be burned. Only in Amsterdam could Jews safely call themselves such, and they grew up strong and free in a city that became known in the diaspora as New Jerusalem, like I just said earlier. So Holland, who are Dutch really? Who are the Black Dutch? Who's the Dutch really in history? All right, more and more. Are you starting to see the picture? That was the New Jerusalem. Only in Amsterdam could Jews safely call themselves such. That's where they were. That's their spot right there. Their mentors were their refugee parents who settled there on the run from the Inquisition, and their rabbi, the pirate Samuel Palachi. All right? These people were trying to survive for centuries. Most of the community's 50 or so families were elite merchants from Spain and Portugal. Merchants. Remember who the merchants were, whose skills and connections had made them welcome in what was fast becoming Europe's trading capital. Rabbi Palachi, a Barbary pirate, North African. Rabbi Palachi, North African, African pirate, African so-called black man, who was still capturing Spanish ships in the late 60s. Now, we understand, all right, when you got to see what my point was, and I've been showing you how, you know, they tell us in history how the Portuguese and the Dutch got together against the Spanish, and, we see countries, but it was really the same people getting together. And why were they robbing and capturing Spanish ships? Because that was their enemies who was persecuting them. This was the Christians versus the Sephardic Jews and Moorish people who were being persecuted by the Inquisition. All right, that's why they were capturing Spanish ships. They were like, you know what, we're gonna steal from you guys. They started raiding their ships. That's how pirates came about. Well, at least in this time and over here. While the aim of their parents was to live freely, grow wealthy on the New World trade, and have their portraits painted by Rembrandt, their ultimate goal was nothing less than to bring down the Spanish Empire. They wanted to bring that down. The Spanish Empire, the Catholic Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. Their proxy armies in the struggle were the Dutch, the English, and in the final successful assault, the Buccaneers of the West Indies. Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean is the history of the Sephardic Jews. All right? Okay, I told you guys. All right, once you get into true, correct history, everything starts coming together.
I paid off $495,000 in debt within 18 months using what I now call my success.
All right, because the Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean, all right, forget the Toltec Jewish. Pirates of the Caribbean is the history of Sephardic Jews in the early New World, okay? That whole movie, that was them, involving intrigue, horror, defeat, survival, and final victory over the hooded inquisitors of the Holy Terror, all right, the Holy Roman Empire. It concludes with their last hurrah, their search for the legendary lost gold mine of Columbus, all right, you hear that? After achieving a Jewish rights in Europe and the New World, 3 Dutch Jews, accompanied by their sons, went into the mountains of Jamaica to find Columbus' mine. They reported that their search was not successful, but I found their map and have reason to believe it was. All right, so that was a great prologue. All right, very informative, and he's about to get down. So that was his whole goal, to show this history, and then eventually towards the end.
I've been looking for you my whole life. I knew what it was that I've been trying to find. A special lover like you, precious and one of a kind. Let me take you to a place called ecstasy. Baby, when we arrive, you'll find that love is alive. Just like the flowers of spring, we two will blossom and sing. Take my hand, girl, come and go with me. I wanna take you away to a paradise, a special place deep inside of emotion. I made a wish on a star one night, girl, that wish came true the first time I laid eyes on you. To love you is all I want to do. To love you, to love no one but you. There ain't nothing in this world that I wouldn't do to have you here next to me, to be closer to you. You by design answer all of my fantasy. Oh, yes, you do, baby. When I hold you in my arms, sensations arise, the kind I just can't explain. No words can define a passionate fire burns deep inside of me. Oh, yes, it does. I wanna take you away to a paradise, a special place deep inside of emotion. I made a wish on a star one night, girl, my wish came true the first time I laid eyes on you. To love you is all I want to do. Yeah, 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 yeah. To love you, to love no one but you. Oh, baby. Take me in your arms, I'm at your command, girl. Do anything, everything that I can, girl, to make your dreams, all your wishes come true. Yesterday and tomorrow, till time is through. To love is all I want to do. Now did you hear what I said now, baby, baby, yeah. To love you, to love no one but you.
Yeah, what's up? I want to take this time to dedicate this song to all my fallen soldiers out there, man. You know what I'm saying? To all my peoples doing hard time. To all my street hustlers, man, my street soldiers. You know what I'm saying? We still out here grinding, man. We out here grinding. Huh. Let's get this money. Let's go.
I woke up in the morning, gotta thank God for seeing another day. I got money on my mind, looking for another way. Living this life I live, trying to feed my family in peace. Living this life I live, gotta get this money for the real. That's why I push a hard line. I keep my pistols by my wayside. To all my peoples doing hard time, just keep your head up, it's gonna be alright, yeah. Here's the true story of a hustler's mind, counting money on the block day and night.
You know, on some treasure hunt here. Very, I know a lot of people love that. Very interesting to me, you know, definitely. I'm gonna make sure to read the whole book, if not with you guys, but at least personally. All right, so we're gonna see if we can get some more information out of this book. All right, so let's continue. All right, so now we're gonna continue on the introduction of this book. Wanted to read this to you guys because it has a great refresh of the information we kind of gone over in the last parts, summarized here in his perspective and the way he learned it and researched it. Says here. All right, we're gonna read it again like the first time. Make sure you understand what's going on. Real history, you know, real history. It says on August 1st, 1492, when Christopher Columbus set sail for the New World, ethnic cleansing was the order of the day. 100,000 Jews left Spain, expelled as mandated by the royal edict of expulsion of the Jews. I remember these are Sephardic Jews. These are not just white-looking, pale-skinned, what we think of Ashkenazi or Israelite Jews from Israel today. We're a little different. Those who remained behind or crossed the border to Portugal converted to Catholicism. The more adventurous went on to the New World. It is about this group that our story is told. All right, about what group? The one that went to the New World. All right, not the one converted to Catholicism, but those are in here too. Long before Spain was Spain, all right, before it was called Spain, Jews were living there. Sephardic Jews were there. King Solomon trading post 1000 BC. All right, dodge the hijack. They already messed with our chronologies, throwing us back 3,000 years, 1,000 years, 300 years. Get the work from Anatoly Fomenko. Great research from this person, Anatoly Fomenko. The new chronology, history, fact or fiction. Check out that information. All right, we're gonna do future videos on this because I've been digging and research for the last 3 to 4 years, along with brothers, Con Drop, 42 The Drop Radio, and others, UB News, exposing the fake chronology. All right, so again, Now they're trying to say King Solomon's trading post was in 1000 BC. I say this was a lot recently, a lot more recent. All right, so dodge the hijack. But either way, they're letting you know that Spain was a trading post. All right, and that these Jews were handling it. Developed over the millennium to become Sephard, a strategic outpost of the Roman Empire. It was there in the 5th century AD that Emperor Titus, all right, so that's the hijack again, 5th century AD. Emperor Titus, after conquering Israel and burning the temple, exiled thousands of Jews. All right, so they're saying that when Jerusalem got taken over by the Roman Titus, right, which they're saying in 1st century AD, I say a lot more recent, all right, a lot more recent, that all these Jews that were, a lot of them ended up in Sephard or Spain, right there in Iberia. All right, so a lot of those Jews, again, you know, they do come from a lot of true Hebrew nations. You know, they also did mix with a lot of other peoples that were in this area of Iberia, you know. So there's a long history there. Check out the first parts of this series so we can get a full understanding. Although the Jews of Sephard flourished, they were always tenants. The Visigoths who replaced the Romans made it illegal for them to own land. And Spain's subsequent rulers, the Vandals, the Moors, and Catholics, found it expedient to continue the ban. Despite this and other restrictions, the tribe of Moses grew and prospered. In Spain's feudal society, Jews were an educated elite, a merchant class also respected as physicians and financiers. At the end of the 14th century, after some 1,500 years of residence, the 500,000 Jews of Sephard, half the Jews of Europe, and I would say it was more probably, represented the oldest and largest Jewish community outside Palestine. Their leaders boasted lineage to King David and considered themselves the aristocracy of Jewry. These were halcyon days for people who were unwelcome in most Europe. All right, so again, you know, just touch the hijack, part 3 of the series. We know the Sephardis have a lot of Turkish blood too, a lot of Muslim and influence and blood as well. So again, it's not just fully what we would consider Israelite or King David. You know, the spirit, what you have inside of you, your spirit is what really counts, not what your background is. Because anybody could be a background of anything, doesn't mean they're going to be like that person, right? It's all about your ruach, the spirit. Right, so out of these people, many are probably carrying the true ruach, right, the true spirit, and many probably are not and carrying a whole different type of ruach. All right, so that's all I'm saying. Hopefully, you guys understood what I was saying there. Let me continue. It says, but their very prosperity and superior lifestyle were resented or presented by an educated mass whose all-consuming religious beliefs could be inflamed by virulent anti-Semitism. Ferran Martinez, a fire in Seville, provided the spark following a frenzied sermon in which he accused Jews of everything from causing the Black Plague to killing Christians, children, and drinking their blood. He incited the crowd to rise up and destroy this accursed race. Descending on Seville's Jewish quarter, the rabble slaughtered 4,000 men, women, and children. What is known in Jewish history as the Massacre of 1391 had commenced. Pogroms spread from city to city. The mob's ammunition, convert or die, resulted in 100 dead Jews and 100,000 converts for Jesus. After a bloody year, peace was gradually restored. Spain's 300,000 remaining Jews came forth from hiding places and reconstructed their lives. Those who remained faithful continued to live as Jews, but under a host of restrictions. But the 100,000 converted Jews freed from religious bondage rose over the next century to positions of power that had been denied them as Jews, called conversos or new Christians, to distinguish them from the dominant old Christians. They achieved major positions in government, the army, and universities, and married into the highest nobility, all right? So they weren't doing so bad always. They were prominent at court and in the hierarchy of the church. However, conversion by coercion rather than conviction had an unforeseen consequence. Forced baptism had brought infidels into the church, but in doing so created heretics within. In the last decades of the 15th century, there began what came to be called the Holy Terror. Queen Isabella vowed she would root out all heretics from her kingdom once the Catholic reconquest of Spain from the Moors was complete. Meanwhile, She would begin by reading our heretics in Seville, a city known for Jews pretending to be Christians. Her means was to auto the fe, act of faith, the church's idea of judgment day on earth, with a grand inquisitor playing God. Wow. In 1482, Isabella gave that role to her confessor Thomas de Torquemada. In the course of his 18-year reign, the former Dominican friar personally condemned 9,000 Jews to the stake at the Quemadero burning ground outside the city walls. Wow, Torquemada. So we got all his historic books. He got first-hand accounts because he was over here in the Americas dealing with the Indians. That's funny because he was even saying that they had Jewish and they were the lost tribes of Israel. But then he's over here condemning thousands of Jews in Spain outside the city walls. He also exhumed the bodies of 7,000 dead heretics and burned their remains. Whenever Torquemada appeared in public, he was accompanied by 50 agents on horseback and 200 armed guards. You hear that? Yeah, bodyguards, because he was hated. You see, he was an evil ass dude. Excuse my French. He was evil. He was just murdering people. Didn't care. You can't just murder thousands of people and act like God. You ain't God. 10 years later, on the very day Columbus set sail, Spain's monarchs banished her Jews to purify and thereby unite their nation. All right. On the same day, on the very day, what happened on the very day? This Sephardic Moorish Columbus, not his name. What happened on that very day? Spain's monarchs banished her Jews to purify. They got kicked out that was their deadline. All right, that was their deadline. They already had got warned a couple months back. That was their deadline. So what do you think happened? A lot of them came with Columbus. A lot of them came on their own. Went somewhere else and made it over here. Jews settled everywhere. Like I just said, Jews settled everywhere. They were permitted. And disguised, that's Portuguese New Christian. Disguised. All right, what else did they become disguised? That's Protestants. Right? Dutch, English, Irish, Black Dutch. Right? These were crypto Jews, crypto Muslims. Remember, it wasn't just Jews they banished from Spain. It was the Jews and Moors. They became, both of them, new Christians, but they really weren't, all right? Along with other pioneers in the far-off New World, they carved out a niche for themselves, living possibly the most original experience the world has ever known. They thought themselves safe, but the white-hooded inquisitors soon followed. In the 16th and 17th centuries, thousands of New World conversos were arrested, tortured, and tried. Found guilty, they saw their wealth confiscated, and they were first flogged, then imprisoned, strangled, burned, or condemned either to work in the salt mines of Venezuela. Again, who's they sending to work in the salt mines of Venezuela? And I bet you, if any of you do the research, because I'm going to do it, because I'm just reading this with you today, I bet you when we go read the history of who these mines were in Venezuela during this time of colony, they were saying they were bringing in Negroes. They brought in Negroes from Africa or just Negroes to work. But who was really being sent over there? Thousands of them. Again, let's go back. Thousands, all right? Get this clear to your head is what I'm trying to show you. Thousands of these Sephardic Moorish, all right, people of color, conversos, new Christians, disguised crypto Muslims and crypto Jews were arrested, tortured, and found guilty, right? And what happened? They were condemned to work in the salt mines of Venezuela or to row galley ships across the Pacific, a sentence from which none returned. They were the ones at the bottom. It wasn't no African slaves. It wasn't just any Negro in there from Africa. That's what they show us in the movies. You see what's going on? Go research that. I bet you they're going to say it was Negroes or Africans. And they're not going to mention anything about Sephardic Jews or Muslim Moors going over there, new Christians. Inquisitors were thorough in their questioning of heretics, and the trial transcripts offer an intimate look into the condemned Judaizers' secret lives. During the day, they went about as exemplary Catholics, attended mass, went to confession, and had their children baptized. But on certain nights, they met secretly in one another's homes, right? Secretly reverted to Hebrew names and read from the Torah. History would come to call these secret Jews Marranos and Moriscos, meaning pigs, though this term is generally lost its pejorative meaning. I prefer to call them what they call themselves in the sanctity of their homes, Jews. Each New World colony had an underground community of Jews known only to one another and their brethren in other colonies, all right? Secret communities. Together, conversos in the New World dominated commerce. They dominated commerce. Who was doing the trade? The merchants. Who was in charge of all that? Again, this is part 8. Nations of the world. Who was in this trade? In the 16th century, when the known world doubled in size and international trade became big business, they established a trade network that spanned the globe. In Lima, Peru, the Inquisition reported the city is thick with Jews. Everything goes through their hands. Like, who's these Jews? The people of color. I'm trying to make you understand. These are not just white people. These are so-called black people running this stuff. Where? In Peru. All right, it was thick with them. Everything goes through their hands, from brocade to sackcloth, diamonds to cumin seeds, to the most precious pearl and the vilest Guinea black. In Potosi, Bolivia, with the Silver Mountain, the Inquisitors reported the silver trade is almost exclusively in the hands of the crypto Jews. All right, so who's really the owners? Who's really these slave masters? In Potosi, especially, read about that mountain they got all the silver from. All right, and mainly it was American Indians, other people of color who they were put into slave there. Who was running that? Crypto Jews. In Port Royal, Jamaica, English merchants protested the sentence of the crucifiers of blessed Jesus, eat us and our children out of all trade. They purchased the entire cargo of a trading ship, divided according to paid shares, and distributed goods through agents in each of the colonies. In concert with their fellow Jews scattered worldwide by the Sephardic diaspora, they formed a global tribe of inside traders, bonded by heritage, language, and hatred for Spain or the Roman Empire. New World Jews traded with covert brethren on the Iberian Peninsula, and later sold directly to Jews in Amsterdam and London, often in ships leased from Jewish ship owners in Amsterdam and Antwerp. It's all connected. They're all family. They're all doing business together. Who's the Dutch? Who's the Spanish? Who's these Jews? Who's the Portuguese? Who's the French? You got to start really asking questions and really doing research and stop generalizing, right? Again, some deep history. Again, dealing with the people of the book was very attractive. Their innovative letters of exchange and credit made capital portable. For instance, a shipping merchant trading in pirate waters doubled his risk if he returned with gold. On the other hand, if he could leave the gold and return instead with a draft on a Jewish banking house, he was safe. As a link in a world trade network, at the onset of international trade, Jewish merchants, right? These Jewish, Sephardic, Moorish Jewish people of color were the world's most coveted capitalists, all right? They were the world's most coveted capitalists. The historian of capitalism, Fernand Braudel, writes, "It has too quickly been assumed Jews did not invent capitalism. Certainly, they participated wholeheartedly in its beginnings. If they didn't invent it, they were the ones who really started that, capitalism, all right? It is not unrealistic to refer to the 17th century as the age of the great Jewish merchants. All tags, we talk about Sephardic, Iberians, Moorish people of color, right? Piracy was another lucrative area of commerce in which these Jewish merchants specialized. They were the pirates. Questions of morality did not apply. It was the normal business of every nation to license mercenaries, all right? Licensed mercenaries, privateers, right? They were hiring these people to seize and rob enemy ships and share the proceeds. The only difference with the Jews was they did not have to license their freebooters. Encoded correspondence with fellow merchants and other colonies, they were able to ascertain what ship was sailing when, its cargo, route, and destination, and what its captain may have secreted in his cabin. Thus informed, the Jewish merchants were the brains behind the brawn, financing, advising, and sometimes leading the Caribbean's emerging fighting force. All right, they were the ones doing every part of it. A ragtag crew of misfits of every nation that coalesced as the dreaded pirates of the Spanish Main. From many nations, all right, but they were all what? They were all what? Cryptos, Iberian cryptos. A president for this unholy alliance was set by fellow Sephardim in North Africa, all right, in North Africa, a Sephardim from North Africa who had assured their welcome among the Moors by profitably backing and sometimes leading the Barbary pirates. These people were all together, you see. Sinan, Barbarossa's second in command, was referred to in crown correspondence with England's Henry VII as the Great Jewish Pirate, and the brothers Samuel and Joseph Palachi would go from commanding pirates to founding Amsterdam's Jewish community. You hear that? That's a big one. I didn't know these were the actual founders, that they were actually pirates before that. I think I read it a little bit, but I didn't pay attention. But I understand now. They were so successful, they became so prominent, right? They ended up what? Founding Amsterdam's Jewish community, New Jerusalem. These pirates founding New Jerusalem. A pirates founding New Jerusalem. All right.
Yeah. Money Mac. Dale Fed. What's up, y'all? And Mr. Reed. That's how we do it, y'all. Y'all ain't even ready, though. Hell nah. Mac. What's up now? Yeah. Give it to him. Yeah. These niggas on life support, about to put a plug on them. Speaker in the trunk, bumping dope like a drug runner Mac. Music in my veins, I'm a blood donor racks. See them daily like a strip club on a fat. Give it crack, smoke rap. Hang these motherfuckers out to dry like a coat rack. Back wet, got pulled like an abscess. Meet me at the block, I keep numbers like an address. Hustlin' ass nigga in the bed with a bad bitch. Sleep number 5, 10s, 20s in a mattress. Whole life's a crapshoot. Hell yeah, I'm gambling. Bet it all on black student, body up and grabbling. DJ sampling, rappers just biting. Bitches in my pocket, out of gas, try to siphon. Touch more keys than Sean Ross on the Triton. Heavyweight, iron on the mic like Tyson. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. So I gotta do what I gotta do. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. So I gotta do what I gotta do.
I'm old school like rockin' bells and LLs, dropping tail short dogs, 7-5 girls. Step into my world, MCs and DJs, Rick Lee's and freeways, shake cheese, it's all day, smoke weed and serve game, magazine in this prime. Pretend this ain't my racket, I'm a menace when I'm rapping, there's no ending to this saga. All the other rough the raw, Tupac, I'm like fuck the world. I do this thing often like fucking your girl, teaching youngsters to be bosses to motivate they sales. I soak the game well and you should do the same, it ain't hard to tell. You better guard your grill, cause the streets is talking and you're the topic. You better guard your grill, cause the streets is talking and you're the topic.
My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. So I gotta do what I gotta do. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. My music is my motivation. Making money's just a habit. So I gotta do what I gotta do. My music is my motivation, man. It's more than a dream.
method and got you effing and acting faster than acting to acting. Half of them laughing that you're still rapping. Your only craft is networking on MySpace. I'm here to change the game, not to make it a fucking disgrace. Erasing your fucking mind. My chase is all you can taste. Kung Fu vampire and hops it in your face.
Of the 17th century, rival Christian merchants wanting a share of the fabulous wealth being generated by trade in the New World, sought to expose the conversos as heretics before the Holy Office of the Inquisition. So you understand, they wanted a piece of the pie. The Holy Roman Empire was like, yo, man, they're making a lot of money over there off our lands, right? We're the ones in charge, right? So let's just go kick them off. Let's take their trade. Let's call them heretics so we can condemn them, like saying, oh, he's a terrorist, patriot act. Let's go get him, right? Oh, they're heretics. Let's go. We got the right and the authority to go grab them, confiscate their land, put them to work in plantations or salt mines, or to row ships, right? Do whatever. We take their trade. We take their whole business. Thus threatened covert Jews beginning in 1620s, conspired with Holland and England to seize a New World colony. Writing in code to agents in Europe, they proposed to serve as a fifth column in the body of the enemy. They are good and useful spies, said the confidant of Oliver Cromwell, regarding the Jews who advised Cromwell in the conquest of Jamaica. The conquest of Jamaica by the Jews. Sephardic Moorish, crypto Jews, positioned to assist Spain's enemies. They did. Jewish trade links cultivated since 1492, when Sephardim settled the far corners of the globe, doubled as a worldwide intelligence network. You hear what's going on, all right? They took over. From the time Jews in Portugal got word to Queen Elizabeth that the Armada was sailing, they shared secret intelligence with the enemies of Spain. Jews had been outlawed from living in France since 1394 and from England since 1290. However, when those two nations and Holland settled a dozen small, uninhabited Caribbean islands between 1624 and 1635, Jews were welcome. Their connections and knowledge of New World trade were indispensable to the success of the new colonies, and they spoke the language. Who else but Sephardic merchants could better pursue illegal trade with the Spanish colonies, huh? How else could these small settlements survive? How would they have survived if it wasn't for these Iberian people, Moorish people? The islands constituted mere footholds in what was called the New Spanish Sea. Together they totaled less than 1,500 square miles, while the Spanish New World encompassed millions. Continuing says here, the first openly Jewish settlement in the New World was in Brazil. All right, so we got this info on past videos. You know, we know Brazil, there were so many of these Sephardic Moorish people who were being persecuted, ended up in Brazil, and basically were the pioneers. They settled in many towns and colonies in Brazil. In 1624, the Dutch captured Brazil's capital, Bahia.
Discovered I got a flat tire and no one can help. It pays to be prepared. Keep this in your glove box.
You know, we know Brazil. There were so many of these Sephardic Moorish people who were being persecuted. Ended up in Brazil, and basically were the pioneers. They settled in many towns and colonies in Brazil. In 1624, the Dutch captured Brazil's capital, Bahia, from Portugal with an invasion force that included several dozen declared Jews. The invaders were assisted by local conversos who had gotten word that an Inquisition office was to be established in their province, where 200 of them were living as counterfeit Christians, fake Christians, right? A year later, King Philip IV of Spain sent a 12,000-man army and temporarily threw the Dutch out. Afterwards, the Inquisitors charged secret Jews, had written Holland and asked the Dutch to liberate them, had initiated plans for the invasion and agreed to share its cost. The heretics had suckled at the breast of the Mother Church, and when the Dutch came, openly professed the Jewish faith. All right, you hear that? So they were only Christians. They were playing that out. It was an act. As soon as the Dutch got there to Brazil, they were like, all right, we're Jews. All right, we get to be Jews again. In 1630, Holland's forces again invaded, landed north of Bahia. They conquered Recife and surrounding provinces in northeast Brazil. So the Dutch took it back from the Portuguese Christians or Catholic Empire. Under Dutch protection, a Jewish community thrived there for 24 years. All right. So remember, Dutch the hijack with the tags. Dutch. Who is the Dutch? Who is the Jewish? Most of these were people of color. They called their congregation Sur Israel, Rock of Israel. Marketed sugar and taxed Jewish privateers, 3% of their booty. Sugar and piracy transformed Recife into the richest trading port in the New World outside of Havana. And Jews, integral participants in both industries, lived a high life. Their favorite pastimes may be glimpsed from what they outlawed. Synagogue leaders banned card playing on Friday afternoon, as too many members missed Sabbath service, and levied whooping fines on members caught taking Christian women into the mikvah, the ritual bath. The situation in Brazil was unique. Elsewhere in the New World, as the mid-century approached, the long-established secret Jewish communities in Peru and Mexico came to a flaming end, with each found guilty of a great conspiracy. In 1638, hundreds of Peru's Jews were arrested, their leaders accused of plotting to blow up Lima's harbor in advance of a Dutch invasion. All right, so they were using or saying they needed to take them up because they were plotting, trying to blame them for things and using the Dutch. Why would the Dutch be helping Peru's Jews again? Same people. Were burned at the stake. In 1640s, Mexico's Jews were charged for conspiring to burn down the house of the Inquisition. And by 1650, the methods of the Inquisition, the dungeon, the rack, the stake, marked a decade-long succession of autos de fe that decimated the Mexican community. In both countries, the heretics' wealth was equally divided between the crown and the inquisitors, and their property was auctioned off to old Christians. So you see what was going on. Even in the Americas, they were being persecuted. In 1654, a similar end threatened the congregants of the Rock of Israel when Portugal reconquered Recife. So Portugal again came back to Brazil, where the Dutch had power in 1654, and now they were in trouble again. The Sephardi Moorish people there, right? Because the Catholics were back in town. After 24 years, the only legal Jewish community in the New World was no more. All right, so they were there for 24 years. Jews were given 3 months to leave or be turned over to the Inquisition. The destruction of brethren communities in Mexico and Peru convinced the refugees the New World was again off limits. They departed Recife on 16 ships. The 15 that sailed for Holland arrived safely. The ship that went north to New Amsterdam did not. This ship ran into a storm that by the adverse drove it into Jamaica's enemy waters, where it was seized. The islands was home to a secret Jewish community called Portugals, all right, Portugals, the Gauls, who had been living as merchants and traders since Columbus' son had settled in the island in 1510. The Columbus family owned Jamaica, and in deference to their converso settlers, had kept the island out of bounds to the Inquisition. But when the identity of the Dutch refugees became known, Jamaica's leaders, looking to oust the Columbus family, used the arrival of these suspect heretics to invite inquisitors from Colombia to Jamaica. Fearing an investigation of the refugees might lead to their own exposure, Jamaica's Portuguese, right? So they were there deep hiding. They were in secret. They were like, oh man, now these people from Brazil brought us heat because now they're going to investigate them. Now they're going to investigate us too. We've been here for years and we've been secret Jews. All right. They were just known as Portugals. So they sent a note to Cromwell's agent. Jamaica could be conquered with little resistance, and they pleaded their assistance. The following year, a Jew from Nevis led 36 English ships into the harbor, and 2 local Jews negotiated and signed a peace treaty surrendering the island to England. The treaty exiled the Spanish, and Cromwell invited Jamaica's Portugals to stay as openly as Jews. All right, so you hear the whole background as why and how Jamaica became a territory of England, and it had mainly and only and basically almost all entirely due to the fact that the Jews were living there, all right, Sephardic Jewish Moorish people, all right, and so they needed help from the England to get them out. So they made a treaty with England. All right, we'll do business. Let us stay here. Kick out the Catholic Empire from here. Welcomed by the English, Jews from all over the New World shed their converso cloaks and emigrated to Jamaica. Jamaica, Jamaica, yeah. Where are you getting all this Rastafari influence of the tribe of Judah, of the star symbol, Star of David? You think it's coming from Africa? Ethiopia? I would logically think that.
So the fun thing with the serpent is, how does a serpent talk? What? And not only that, but why is the serpent's punishment to crawl on its
knowing the history there, knowing the thousands of Jews that fled there, and there were thousands of them who were people of color. All right, these same Jews had inheritance and descendants who were hundreds and hundreds of thousands, right? They multiply, and then eventually, you know, the whole Africa out of Africa, and the Kunta Kinte story comes in, and then you forget, you know, like this book said in the beginning, an unknown part of history, especially here in Jamaica. All right, so again, once the Dutch and the English made a deal, and that these Sephardic Jews and all these people made deals and treaties in Jamaica, then it was a haven for these Moorish Jews to settle in Jamaica. All right, Jews from all over the New World shed their converso cloaks. They don't have to hide anymore, and they immigrated to Jamaica. The community soon included ship owners from Mexico and Brazil, traders from Peru and Colombia, and ship captains and pilots from Nevis and Barbados. All right, they set up shop in Jamaica. These Moorish, Jewish, crypto Jews, crypto Muslims. Together, their knowledge of New World trade was unsurpassed. By 1660, Jamaica had become the Jews' principal haven in the New World. Jamaica, all right, Rastafari, tribe of Judah. Where they getting all that influence from, huh? Unlike the small, isolated isles in the Eastern Caribbean, Jamaica was a major island in the middle of the shipping lanes, an ideal base from which to strike at Spanish shipping and well positioned to engage in contraband trade with the Spanish Main. Soon after the English conquest, Jamaica's Jews convinced the island's new leaders that the best way to defend the colony, all right, they were doing a treaty with the English. They're talking about England, right? These Sephardic Jews, who are really the ones there, inviting the England to come help them. You can have this colony. Let us live here. But they were the ones primarily there. They were the population, along with, of course, the local aboriginals, right? The Arawak Taino people. But they were the ones mainly there. So they were, you know, they said to their new leaders, the best way to defend the colony and have it prosper was to invite the pirates of the Caribbean to move there. The pirates of the Caribbean, Jack Sparrow and all of them, right? Johnny Depp and all of them, right? The Pirates of the Caribbean. Hey, welcome. All right, who were these Pirates of the Caribbean? Again, Moorish Jews, Moorish Muslims, cryptos. The Spanish will think twice about attacking Jamaica if its principal port was the home base of the feared Buccaneers of the West Indies, the Buccaneers. Buccaneers. In return for a safe harbor, these pirates, the Brethren of the Coast, that's what they called themselves, look at that, became Jamaica's defense force and piracy its principal industry. You see, there's a background to all of this, and it has to do with people of color, these Iberian people, Sephardic, this whole Inquisition, the whole diaspora of the Jews and Moors from Spain. In the 1660s, Port Royal, with its wealthy Jewish merchants, ship owners, and synagogue, was known as the treasure house of the Indies, for all the booty brought there, catering to a transient pirate population with one bar and brothel for every 8 persons. The pirate capital acquired a reputation of the world's wickedest city, the pirate capital, all right? Port Royal, the pirate capital in Jamaica, because of Sephardic Moorish people. The wickedest city, pirate capital. Within 15 years, pirate raids from Jamaica on the Spanish Main, organized and financed by the merchants of Port Royal, broke the back of the Spanish Empire. They broke the back of the Spanish Empire, right? They had this big confederacy going on here, right? The English, Jewish, the pirates, all this kind of the same people. Most likely, a lot of them, these English were probably Sephardic Jews too. We got to go through the background of that. Remember, they settled everywhere since the 1300s, 1200s. All right, they were already in England in the 1200s. All right, medieval times. They were already there, a lot of them. All right, so they broke the back. They organized, these merchants, right? We already know who these merchants of Port Royal, these port Jews, right? They broke the back of the Spanish Empire, people of color. And Henry Morgan, the Jews found their Joshua. In Henry Morgan, the Jews found what? Their savior, their Joshua, their deliverer, right? Not savior, but deliverer. The ones who were going to deliver them, right? The Buccaneer Admiral's 6 raids on Spanish ports, culminating in the burning of the Golden City of Panama, brought the Spanish Empire to its knees. Henry Morgan helped all these people. In the Treaty of Madrid in 1670, Spain acceded to Europe's right to settle the New World. All right, the Jews were finally free to be Jews, right? The 17th century commenced with Jews outlawed in most of Europe and the New World. It ended with their freedom. The participants in the liberation struggle are known. They were the children of refugees from the Inquisition, children of refugees, people of color fleeing, refuge from Inquisition, who in the early 1600s, after having lived underground their lives in Spain and Portugal, after being underground in Spain and Portugal, settled in Amsterdam, accepted by the Dutch as a valued merchant class. They raised their children in the free air of Holland. They became Dutch, right? Where a select group of them, following the example of their warrior rabbis, took it upon themselves to change things. Over the course of half a century of leadership, 1623 to 75, they invaded the New World, battled the Inquisition, and orchestrated their people's freedom. All right? A tale. There's a happy ending. Warriors, triumphant people, right? All right, but what about the indigenous people of America? All right, again, this was not about color. These were people of color. And in their pursuit of freedom, they did take over a lot of the land over here. So it's not about complexion, it's not about hating these people or saying, oh, you guys are invaders or anything. But it's just history, we got to acknowledge every part of our ancestry and genealogy. All right, so that was the prologue and the introduction of this book. And just to continue with the topic of today's video, I want to read from this website. It's from the Friends of Israel Initiative.org website. And this article right here, it says Sephardic Jews in the Caribbean islands. All right, Sephardic Jews helped build nations and islands that were discovered by Christopher Columbus and other people with Jewish background. All right, Columbus, what? With Jewish background. Again, Columbus was a Sephardic Jew, a Moorish Jew. And down here it says, one way or another, there is something nobody can deny about this sea, talking about the Caribbean Sea, of heavenly beauty and its cluster of unmatched islands. Western civilization entered the Western Hemisphere for the first time through the islands of the Caribbean, and Sephardic Jews were among the first Europeans to set foot on the soil of the Western Hemisphere. The New World discovered by Christopher Columbus. I am among those that consider Columbus a Sephardi, that is a Sephardic Jew. All right, he considers all these references, all these correlation. Yeah, he was a most likely Sephardic Jew. This is another source, another reference. Simon Wiesenthal postulates that Columbus was careful to conceal his Judaism. Others have argued that Columbus was a converso, a Sephardic Jew who publicly converted to Christianity. Another word commonly used as Marrano, a Jew living in the Iberian Peninsula who converted or was forced to convert to Christianity. Many of whom continued to practice Judaism in secret. In the Caribbean, Sephardic Jews were sometimes known as Portugals. All right, they was known as Portugals. We got that in Jamaica, right? Or Portuguese, because they were settled in that country after the expulsion of 1492. So remember, these were Moorish people being expelled from Iberia, Spain, and Portugal. My favorite Spanish historian, Don Salvador de Madariaga, one of the 20th century most prominent Spanish statesmen and former professor of Oxford University, describes Columbus' Jewish roots in what I consider an almost definitive biography, Vida del muy magnífico señor Don Cristóbal Colón. The presence of a good number of conversos in Columbus' ship is described by José Amador de los Ríos in his Historia Social, Política y Religiosa de los Judíos de España y Portugal. All right, so we already got the background. A lot of these Sephardic Jews and Moors in Columbus ship, we already got that drop before. That is also the opinion of Simon Wiesenthal in his book, Sails of Hope, The Secret Mission of Christopher Columbus. Let me quote, by midnight, August 2nd, 1492, all Jews must leave Spanish soil. That same night, the 3 sailing ships which are to carry Christopher Columbus on his voyage of discovery are anchored quietly in Palos Harbor. And although they are not scheduled to embark until the following day, Columbus has ordered his crew to be on board by 11, but strangely enough, not a single priest is included. The auspicious coincidence of these 2 events, compounded with the intense mystery which was always surrounded the identity of Columbus, has led to a complete re-examination of all previously accepted theories about the true nature of his mission. The true nature of Columbus' mission. What was the true nature? Remember, he wrote a book saying he was coming to reconquer the holy city and Mount Zion. All right, remember, he's a Sephardic Jew. This is a prophesied this to him. This is a prophetic mission he's on. All right, he's a Sephardi Moor. He's Moorish, a person of color. Going back to 1492 and their massive expulsion, observant Jews fled east to the Ottoman Empire. Others converted in order to remain, and we know a lot of them ended up in other parts of Europe too, not just the Ottoman Empire, right? A minority fled to Portugal. In 1497, Spain pressured Portugal to install its own Inquisition as a prize for the union of the royal houses in marriage. But a new chapter was going to start in Jewish history. New Christians, as conversos and their children were known at that time, made it possible for a new world to be discovered. All right, these are the people who discovered, these are the people who made it possible, all right, the Sephardic Moorish people. Luis de Santangel, Abraham Sr., Gabriel Sanchez, Abraham Sacuto, all right, these people were the ones who funded the voyages, not Queen Elizabeth or Ferdinand, or Isabella, I mean. Abraham Sacuto, the Crescas family, and others contributed with their influence, their money, or their knowledge to Columbus' voyages. It is not possible to know exactly how many Sephardic Jews came to America with Columbus. All right, it's not possible, so they can't say very little. It was mostly, it could be all of them could have been Sephardic Moors, all the Spaniards and Portuguese. They can't tell. Some names are known, among them Luis de Torres, Columbus' interpreter. Remember, Luis de Torres spoke Hebrew. All right, he was his interpreter. Why did they bring in a Hebrew Chaldean interpreter with them to speak with the Indians? All right, so he was his interpreter and future tobacco planter, one of the first Europeans to walk upon the soil to the New World, as the Harry Array mentions. His book, 500 Years in the Jewish Caribbean, together with the names of Maestre Bernal and Marco, the doctor of Flotilla, beginning with these Jews that defied the dangers of the sea. And I consider the great Columbus to be one of them, and many others. Jews were among the first European colonists in the Caribbean. It is true that they had to hide their Jewishness, all right, crypto Jews, secret Jews, and that some had already become Christians under pressure. It is also true that new names were assumed and used when traveling or in business dealings, all right? They were anglicized and their names were changing them around, all right? As Ratti mentions, details like the following Moses Cohen might become Antonio Baez Enriquez or Joshua Toledo. Toledo is a common Jewish name. Might become Juan de la Madrid. All right, so they might change their name completely from Joshua Toledo to Juan de la Madrid. The legendary Amsterdam Jewish ship owner Manuel Rodriguez was elsewhere known as Jacob Tirado or Tirado. He may also have assumed the names Gimes Lopez da Costa or Simon Lopez da Costa. All right, see how they were switching their names, all right? Sephardic Jews, Moors, Moorish people, people of color, that we thought a lot of these people were so-called white Europeans, but they weren't. They weren't. It would take a long time to look at all the names and all the possibilities beginning with 1492, but there is no important event in the period and future periods in which Jews were not present. At a very important part of the history of the Caribbean, they were there, all right? The first sailors, soldiers, officers, planners, builders, teachers, even priests and friars included an extremely high number of Jews, all right? Some of which practiced their faith in secret. In other words, when we talk about the discovery, conquest, and colonization of the New World, and not only of the Caribbean, we are dealing with a chapter of Jewish history. Of course, Spanish authorities realigned the high number of new Christians in the New World or trying to reach it. Secret Jews were discovered and tried in Hispaniola, today's Dominican Republic and Haiti, in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and Trinidad, among other places. So they were all over the place. They were the settlers, early pioneers of these places. As we talk about ideas and historical events, we are going to enter into a fascinating subject that needs more exploration, all right? And it's true, now think about what they're telling us. Think about what we're learning. When we're talking about these first settlers and pioneers, we know there's Spanish and Portuguese, right? So, they told us on history when we was always picturing these first conquistadors, right? Like these ruthless people coming and invading and taking the land and conquering, conquistadors, right? But it was actually Sephardic Jews and Moors, all right? Sephardic Jews and Moors who were the actual people doing that they told us. As we talk about islands, again, fortunately, recent historians and researchers are now aware of the Jewishness of some of the chapters of Caribbean and American history. As we're not able to discuss all the details, let us concentrate on some of them. We're not dealing with Jewish presence in Mexico, Central, and South America, all right? So that's a whole other video we're going to do. Remember, I keep telling you that. We're going to get into that, right? Who are these people there and what was going on over there in these places as well. It would take a very long talk to deal with the information that is becoming available about those areas of the Western Hemisphere. Again, he just said that is becoming available. As we research, and even today, this video, this is all new stuff, right? That this is coming available for everybody. We're putting it all together. It's all correlating. An interesting book I recommend is Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean, all right? That's the book we just read, prologue and introduction. His book is introduced in its cover with these words: how a generation of swashbuckling Jews carved out an empire in the New World in their quest for treasure, religious freedom, and revenge. There were Catholic, Calvinist, Lutheran, Anglican, and Jews, pirates, and many others without any interest in religious matters, all right? You see that? All these Calvinists, Huguenots, Protestants, right? All these tags, these are the same people. There were Catholic, Calvinist, Lutheran, Anglican, and Jewish pirates, and many others without any interest in religious matters. Piracy is not exactly what we see in movies, all right? Piracy is not what we see in movies, all right? Johnny Depp, all that, Jack Sparrow, that's not the real. That's not the real. In some parts of the world, there was a regular occupation, practiced or tolerated by governments and influential individuals. I continue in the same article from Friends of Israel Initiative.org. It says here, the Dutch and religious toleration in the Caribbean. We already know the role of the Dutch, the Protestant place, also Sephardic capital, right? The New Jerusalem. So the Dutch, who are these Dutch? All right, we got to take that tag off. There's people behind that, and there's Sephardic Jews and Moors behind that. The Netherlands first, then England, granted religious toleration to people that identified publicly as Jews. Many Jews from Portugal with ancestors in Spain settled in the Netherlands and other Protestant countries, right? Protestant places. Despite some unpleasant incidents, Jewish life became part of Dutch society, and Dutch Jews became financially active in the Dutch East India Company, right? They were in charge of what? The Dutch East India and Dutch West India Company. We already got that in past videos. As former Spanish colonies became Dutch more and more, Jews became active participants in business and other activities. When Recife and Bahia cities controlled by the Dutch for a period of time in the 16th and 17th centuries were conquered by the Portuguese, a number of Jews moved to some of the small islands of the Caribbean. They were not the only Jewish settlers of the region, but in Suriname, in South America, and in Curaçao, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, and Aruba in the Caribbean, small but prosperous Jewish communities developed. Suriname is not geographically part of the Caribbean, but it is culturally Caribbean to an extent. Many authors consider Suriname the oldest continuous Jewish community in the region. In Suriname, it was the first country in the Western Hemisphere where Jews settled openly. Crypto Jews came in 1536. In 1639, observant Jews founded a colony with the name of Torah Rica or Torah Rica, rich Torah. Suriname was for a while a British and then a Dutch colony. All right. Despite minor differences in chronology, it made you useful to remember that Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector opened England to Jews in the middle of the 17th century, and that Jews were openly practicing their faith in the Netherlands more or less at the same time. Countries ruled by Calvinists were more open to the open practice of Judaism than Catholic and Lutheran nations. Curaçao had a large Jewish community. By Caribbean standards, even though Cuba was going to have the largest Jewish community in the 20th century before the Castro Revolution, but until the 20th century, Curaçao had the largest Jewish community in the region. Jews fleeing from Recife, Brazil, arrived in 1659 under the leadership of Isaac da Costa. Right, we got Isaac da Costa already in the video. We got the da Costas and how they were being labeled in the North America. They were being labeled mulattoes. They were Irish mulattoes because they were Sephardic Jews. They were people of color. All right, so the Costa, very strong history. We got a lot of this history before, again, in past videos, but we'll go over it again. It says Mikveh Israel Emmanuel is the oldest synagogue in continuous use in the Western Hemisphere. Besides the Sephardic community, there is a significant Ashkenazic community. For more than 3 centuries and a half, Jewish worship has been conducted there. An interesting fact is that Curaçao Sephardic Jews supported Simon Bolivar efforts during the South American Wars for independence, all right? Sephardic. And Bolivar is believed to be a person of color as well. The families Lobo and Maduro, originally from Curaçao, are among the best known in Caribbean history. The relation between the Sephardic communities, all right? So Maduro's, you know, the president that they have recently or whatever, that's a Sephardic family. Now you see why he was president, right? Or whatever, dictator, whatever you want to see him as. The relationship between the Sephardic communities of the Caribbean and South America and the early Jewish communities in the 13 colonies is significant and historical. It's very significant and historical. That's why we're researching this and getting to know this information. Among other facts, I would like to point out that in the September 1654, 23 Jews from Sephardic community in the Netherlands, coming from Recife, Brazil, arrived in New Amsterdam, New York City. All right, this is where they end up. This is why this is important. They did not find a friend in Dutch Governor Peter Stuyvesant, but religious pluralism was already in tradition in the Netherlands, and the Dutch West India Company overruled his discriminating practices against other religions. The Dutch West India, why did the Dutch West India make them do that? Because that was owned by Sephardic Jews as well, people of color. All right, continue a little bit more. Says, and the British came. Not only Jews from Dutch colonies, but also from British colonies are related to the history of Sephardic Jews in the Caribbean. For instance, there was a very active community in the island of Nevis. There was a synagogue on Nevis in 1684, and remains of the synagogues and Jewish cemeteries is almost all the islands serve as testimony of Jewish contributions to society. By the way, Alexander Hamilton, all right, we got this already. We got this. I did the video already. Check it out. Go back if you haven't checked that out. First Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, received his elementary education in a small Jewish school in his native Nevis. We know that Alexander Hamilton, a colored person, he was being called Swarty, a Swarty Caribbean, mulatto, very dark skin. He was called, and you know, we know that his mom was a Huguenot. That he has Sephardic and Huguenot in him. All right, so we know very suspect for being a dark complexion. Many important names of teachers, politicians, merchants, and professional people indicate the extent of Jewish influence in the small islands of the Caribbean. American statesman Judah Philip Benjamin, one of America's greatest lawyers, was born in St. Croix. He served as senator from Louisiana and then as member of the Confederate cabinet. All right. Who was he? A Sephardic Jew. He was the famous Secretary of State of the Confederate States of America. Who? A Sephardic Jew, Moorish Jew. The Virgin Islands had 3 Jewish governors. The island of St. Thomas had a long Jewish history. Sephardic Jews brought their knowledge of sugar culture. All right, their knowledge of sugar. There was the sugar plantations. Who established the sugar plantations? Who were they really enslaving? Who was really the masters? David de Mercado made Barbados become a leading producer of sugar and rum. David Mercado, Sephardi Jew, Moorish Jew. Early Sephardic residents of Barbados came from the Recife diaspora. All right, so they ended up in Barbados from Brazil. Eventually, from Barbados, they would also end up in the United States, up like areas like South Carolina. All right, a synagogue was built in Bridgetown, Barbados in 1833, but many Sephardim immigrated to England, the United States, or other islands because of 2 factors: hurricanes and the decline of sugar in the world market. All right, it says, and now the Spanish Caribbean. I should start with Hispaniola, our beloved Dominican Republic, and Haiti, but there is something about the brief Spanish occupation of Jamaica that has always interested me. There is no hard evidence for Columbus' alleged gold mine in Jamaica. There are so many legends in the Caribbean and in the rest of the world, but there is enough evidence that in his 4th voyage, when he had been forced to beach his ships in Jamaica after sailing from Panama, with a cache of gold objects bartered from the Indians, Columbus had to face a rebellion, and his brother Bartholomew was able to defeat it with a group of 50 youngsters, many of whom were probably Sephardic Jews. All right, now you get a clear history here. Some of these Jews decided to stay in Jamaica, even when Columbus was able to return to Hispaniola. When his eldest son Diego came to Hispaniola to replace Ovando as governor, he recruited Portuguese from Hispaniola to explore Jamaica and settle there. Diego appointed Juan de Esquivel, a converse who served under Bartholomew. Esquivel was eventually appointed governor of Jamaica and directed converts to settle in Jamaica. All right, Again, this is a Sephardic Moorish Jew. A Caribbean island that for a while served as a haven for Jews. Jamaica, again, was a haven for Sephardic Moorish Jews. Chrysler points out that under the protection of the island's rulers, covert Jews came disguised as conversos from Portugal. Remember, these were pirates. These were pirates, Port Royal. Remember, their presence there known and approved by the Spanish crown. That is not the end of the story. When British warships sailed into Jamaican waters towards Kingston Harbor, after having failed to conquer Santo Domingo, they were led by Campo Sabata, a Marrano Jewish pilot. The British were welcomed by the descendants of early Sephardic settlers. All right, they were welcomed by who? Again, we got the story ready. This is how Jamaica became to be a part of England, a territory of England from the Spain. It was because of the Sephardic Moorish people that were there helping them. Not even the Inquisition was able to reach them. Now, by 1735, there were about 800 Jews in Jamaica. Jews have been among the most important personalities in Jamaican history, members of Jamaica's Privy Council or Privy Council Major of Kingston and other cities. All right, they were prominent roles. All right, and a lot of these people were probably calling them these are the half Jew or half African, and they try to add the whole slavery thing because they were persons of color, but no, it's because they were actually Sephardic and Moorish people from Iberia. A prominent Jew was the first Jamaican ambassador to the United States, and the oldest and most important newspaper, the Daily Gleaner, was founded by the brothers Phineas and Jacob de Cordoba, all right, by Sephardic Moors in Jamaica, all right. So the first prominent ambassador to the United States from Jamaica was a Jew, all right, getting this information. Some of the members of the Jewish community are not Sephardic, as a good number of Polish Jews moved to the island during the Second World War, all right. This is recent. You heard that? All right, this is recent. This is not colonial times. We're not talking about the same thing. It says the early Sephardic Jews that came to Santo Domingo were Maese Bernal, Luis de Torres, Rodrigo Triana, Juan Verde de Triana, Rodrigo Sanchez, Juan del Barco, Gabriel Barahona, and others. But Sephardic Jews lived in different locations on the island, not only in Santo Domingo. Some lived in what is now Haiti. This situation was not limited to the period of Spanish colonization. Through the 18th century, names as De Paz, Sarceda, Soria, Grades, Monsanto, GMO, were found in French Haiti. The slave revolt of the 1790s affected Jews and other whites that died or had to flee. Many Sephardic Jews moved to South Carolina. Again, many Sephardic Jews moved to South Carolina and other areas. And here we go with the whole background and connection, right? You guys saw my South Carolina video. You guys know that South Carolina was especially Charleston, was a free person of color town, mainly, only, possibly, most likely, right, until for a very long time. So many Sephardic Jews, many of those people were Sephardic Jews, Moorish Sephardic Jews that were there. Charleston received, again, here we go, I haven't read this. Charleston received Sephardic Jews from the many Caribbean locations. Even before that, some Jewish merchants remained in Haiti after independence, and later on some Jews from Europe moved to Haiti. Very few live there today. When mentioning Haiti, we should take into consideration that French Jews visited those colonies under French control. Again, French Jews, those are the same people. All right, remember a lot of the Iberians, Sephardic Moors, had to go to France when they got expelled from Spain and Portugal. So these French Jews has visited these colonies under French control, and some stayed there. Guadeloupe, Haiti, Martinique, all right? Same people, they're just being called French, just like these are being called Spanish, Portugals, or Dutch. The family of Prime Minister Pierre Mendès France lived in Jérémie, Haiti, until they moved to Bordeaux. The Mendes are well-known Sephardic family. All right, these are Sephardic Jews. All right, we move on. It says here, Puerto Rico is the second island to be colonized by the Spanish because of the Castro Revolution and the exile of thousands of Cuban Jews. Puerto Rico has the largest Jewish population in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico, and what is your ancestry there? Really? Do you guys know who you really are there? Not just Taino, but also some of the Sephardic and Moorish blood in you. 3,000 or more, and is the only island in the region in which Orthodox, conservatives, and Reformed Jewish movements are represented. Some of the early Europeans inhabiting the island were Sephardic Jews, but little is known about their presence. Nevertheless, some names are known: Salomon Senor, Elias de Sola, Isaac de Lima, Judah Cohen, among others. Most of them were merchants but Isaac de Lima was a well-known doctor of Mayagüez. Unlike other islands, there are no significant records of synagogues, cemeteries, or settlements. Roman Catholicism was enforced rigorously. That's why. A well-documented book about Cuban Jews is Tropical Diaspora, written by Robert Levine, but there are other sources. Many Sephardic Jews lived in Cuba during the Spanish domination, but it was not until 1898 when formal Jewish communities were organized. I would like to emphasize that the first bishop of Cuba that was born in the Caribbean, Don Pedro Agustín Morel de Santa Cruz, born in Santiago de los Caballeros in the 18th century, was not only Sephardic, but he probably was a crypto-Jew, almost the same thing. He was the first Cuban historian and the most prominent personality during the period, 1761-62, that Havana and Western Cuba were under British domination. He challenged British demands to such an extent that he was deported and sent to Florida. Bishop Morel wrote extensively about his history and pastoral work. Cuban historian Cesar Garcia de Pino wrote a book explaining his belief that Bishop Morel was a crypto-Jew that survived the continuous accusations of the Inquisition. He was lying about his identity to survive. Early Jewish Cubans were Sephardic, and their last names are no different from those of their Dominican neighbors. Practically every name I included in my Dominican list are to be found in Cuba. Dr. Levine writes about the beginnings of Sephardic Jewish presence. Historical accounts of the Jewish colony. Evolution on the islands emphasize Jewish connections with Cuba by considering as Jews many people who may or may not have considered themselves members of the Jewish faith. This includes individuals whose ancestors had converted to Catholicism and who were brought up as Catholic, and also others suspected of having been Marranos. All right, so we got a lot of this information. We keep getting this like it's the first time. It gets more solid in our head. You know, we know the background. We started getting more clear picture of this, right? Of these people, of the whole history, a more clear history. All right, so they haven't been Marranos or New Christians, those who maintain outward signs of Christianity. Levine and other authors coincide in believing that the Holy Inquisition was established in Havana around 1519, and that many conversos were accused of being secret Jews. Although aside from one 16th century case, Escalante did not issue sentences until 1610. One name is Francisco Lopez de Leon, convicted of Judaizing and executed. A famous victim of the Inquisition was a Marrano sailor, Captain Miranda, who brought with him a Hebrew Bible from Curaçao. Most of the Sephardic Jews who came to Cuba in the early 20th century were descendants of the late 15th century Jewish exiles from the Iberian Peninsula, all right? Moorish people right here, right? Most of the Sephardic Jews who came in Cuba, what? Descendants of the same people who got expelled with the Moors and the Sephardic Jews from Portugal, Spain. On the other hand, Cuba received more immigrants from Turkey than did any other part of Latin America, and there's a lot of Turkish blood in there. And we know Sephardic people also carry Turkish blood too. A lot of them do. So a lot of Turkish people, more than any other part of the Latin America, and most of these were Jews. Again, most of these Turkish people were what? Jews, Sephardic Jews, these Turkish people. All right, so that was Friends of Israel Initiative.org letting us know the drop of the Sephardic Jews in the Caribbean islands. I'm at this website now. It's pirateempire.blogspot.com, the Pirate Empire. This is from 2016. It says Jewish pirates in the Caribbean. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Most people in America remember this convenient rhyme that tells when Columbus discovered America. What they don't teach us about the same year is that even more momentous event occurred. On January 2nd of 1492, Spain ended a war that had been going on against the Moors of northern Africa for almost 700 years. Moors. You may remember from your school days a little about the Crusades, religious wars in which the Christians of Europe tried to conquer and hold the holy lands of the Bible, especially Jerusalem. While the Muslim and Moors, the people holding her holy land, had their own plans for conquest. They invaded the Iberian Peninsula, location of Portugal and Spain in the 700s, and held large portions of it for over 700 years. Moors. The conquest had a profound effect on culture in the region. It was also, I believe, one important reason why Spain clung so relentlessly to the Catholic religion in a changing world. After all, the conflict between the invaders and the people had largely been a matter of religion, not complexion. On January 2nd, 1492, the last of the Moors were expelled from Spain, and this made it possible for the Spanish government to do things like start programs to improve trade. Such actions included funding a crackpot named Columbus, who thought he could reach India by sailing west, dodged a hijack, One of these major supporters of this expedition was Spain's richest Jewish families. All right, so here's the drop we came for. Right, these Jews had entered the country as bankers, or we got the background on that, traders and money lenders of the Moors, and had become important to the Spanish economy. Now the government of Spain, long accustomed to wagging religious war against the Muslims, seemed about to turn on their Jewish neighbors. These were the days of the Spanish Inquisition. Today we can make jokes about it, but at the time it was deadly serious. The Catholic Church, ruler of the religious lives of the Catholics in Europe and the world, had decreed that people who did not worship in ways determined by the church must be taught the error of their ways. This might involve public humiliation, confiscation of property, torture. About 2% of those accused were burned alive at the stake. Since 1580, the Inquisition in Spain had been particularly dedicated to examining the religious life of the Jews. In order to better get along with society, many Jewish people had converted to Catholicism. These new Christians were often called conversos and were subject to intense scrutiny by the ruling elite. The government suspected, sometimes correctly, that these so-called conversions were merely matters of form. All right, they were really faking it. Some of Spain's Jewish citizens continued to practice the ancient religion in secret, yet it was difficult to act against people who for centuries had carried out banking and trading jobs that Christians did not want to be involved in. Jews and even the conversos had already faced suppression and unequal representation under the law. They had become suspect during the plague years of the 1300s when desperate people looked for someone to blame for the sickness that destroyed whole cities. The Jewish population was handy scapegoat. In many cases, riots broke out that destroyed Jewish neighborhoods, and Jewish citizens were driven from their homes or killed outright. When a rich Jewish converso actually staged a rebellion in northern Spain in 1580, the stage was set for a massive retaliation against anyone of Jewish heritage. Again, these are people of color, Sephardic Jews, not just any type of Jew. So the Jews of Spain began to look for somewhere to go where they could be safe. Already the Jewish populations of England and France had been expelled from their former homes, and it is believed that Jewish bankers provided at least some of the money to finance Columbus. It is not believed, we know for a fact they did. They were the ones financing. As well as encouragement to the King and Queen of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella to explore the world. All right, they encouraged them. Jews from Spain may have migrated to Jamaica as early as 1494 in order to hide their origins. They settled as Portuguese and lived in their own communities. All right, these are people of color calling themselves Portuguese. And, you know, shout out to my Cape Verdean community out there. You guys know that your elders, you know, did the same. You know, instead of saying they were supposed to be African, or, you know, they would say, oh, they're Portuguese, right? Same thing, because a lot of the Cape Verdeans are Sephardic Jews. They were used to that. Only when England overtook the island in 1655 did they dare to reveal themselves. An edict by King Charles in 1660 granted them citizenship, but the Jewish citizens still did not receive equal rights with non-Jews until 1835. Once established in the New World, many Jews went on to support and finance pirates, and also were the pirates, right? We know that. Whether their motives were purely those of profit or if they were seeking retribution for a country that had invented an entire action of the church to hunt them down can only be imagined. But ships named after Old Testament figures such as Prophet Samuel, Queen Esther, and Shield of Abraham held privateering licenses and attacked Spanish shipping. In fact, it was a Dutch pirate of Jewish descent, all right, who is credited as the only captain to have ever actually captured a Spanish treasure galleon in the Battle of the Bay of Matanzas in Cuba during the 80-Year War in 1628. Moses Cohen Enriquez, under the command of Dutch naval officer and folk hero Admiral Piet Pieter Soenheen, Enriquez stumbled upon a Spanish galleon that had become separated from its fleet in the dead of the night. The daring captain captured it at once. Several smaller vessels were also taken in the same raid. In total, the Dutch fleet captured 11,509,524 guilders, about $6 million of booty in gold, silver, and other expensive trade goods such as indigo and cochineal. Without any bloodshed, the Dutch gave the Spanish crews enough supplies for them to march to Havana and release them. The Dutch succeeded in taking over a section of Brazil in 1630, 1654, and Enriquez went on to lead a Jewish community during the Dutch rule and establish his own pirate island of the Brazilian coast, a pirate island, a Sephardic Moorish Jew. After the Portuguese recaptured of northern Brazil in 1654, Moses Enriquez fled South America and ended up as an advisor to Henry Morgan, the leading pirate of the time. Though Jewish people and Jewish pirates in particular did not generally advertise their religion, even in the golden age of piracy, it is safe to assume that many of them were supporters of the pirates, merchants willing to deal in Spanish goods, and traders who supplied power, shot, and rum to anyone with money to spend were parts easily assumed by Jewish merchants with an axe to grind. It's also likely, since Jews valued education, that many of them served as navigators and officers aboard pirate ships, all right? These were the people helping, right? Who were the navigators? Marines, the Moors, right? Who was in Iberia? How many of them were there during the time period? We may never know exactly, but a recent study offers some clues. It's been assumed that today about 200 individuals in Jamaica can trace their ancestry back to Jewish settlers. All right, now this is a little bogus. We know how to dodge the hijack because there was thousands of them there. So they had to have had thousands of descendants, not just 200. All right, but when the matter was actually examined, it was discovered that number is over 200,000 over, and I bet you there's a lot more. I bet you there's a lot more. All right, Jewish pirates of the Caribbean, the Jewish pirates of the Caribbean.
Ow, she's a brick house. She's 1990, just letting it all hang out. She's a brick house. I like lady stack, that's a fact. Ain't holding nothing back. Ow, she's a brick house.
Take it off, baby. Take it off slow. I like Victoria's Secrets, but I want you without your clothes. Now light all the candles and baby let me pour the wine. Let's take a groove to some old school sound. Some Marvin Gaye will do just fine. Girl, you got a body, you're like a fantasy. Let me embrace you, I wanna taste you. Until it comes naturally. Let it be me, the one you love. Oh, I wanna be the sweetest things to you, sweet lady. Let it be me, the one you love. Oh, lay on down to ecstasy. Baby, let's do it naturally. Lay down with me, baby. I massage your back and rub your thighs. Looking into the mirrors of your soul, I see and feel my nature rise. Let me kiss your lips. Oh, let my fingers touch your ecstasy. Let me bring you down to that climax, girl. It's so good to you, it's good to me. Girl, you got a body just like my fantasy. Let me embrace you, I wanna tease you, and do what comes naturally. Let it be me, the one you love. Oh, I wanna do the sweetest things to you, sweet lady. the one you love. Oh, yeah, baby. Yes, you feel so good here in my arms. You and me between these satin sheets. My body all over your body. Your body all over me. Yeah, you got a body built right to fantasy. Let me embrace you, embrace you. I wanna taste you. Do what comes naturally. Do what comes naturally. Let me be the way you love. I wanna make it girl, shake it away, let me be the way you love. I'm gonna make love to you, girl, until your grandma let me be.
This is Jules, VP of a ketchup company, about to use Grammarly to handle a PR issue. Ketchup's not relevant.
Yeah, baby. Today is our day. Listen. Heaven's looking down on us from above. Looking down. You can tell from the look in our eyes. This love must be real love. Yeah. The moments I shared with you led up to this day, this special day, girl. On earth, there's no other that can please me in your way, girl. Today's our day for love. Today is our day for love. Today is our day. Today is our day for love. Our day for love. Listen, baby. For you, there's no mountain I wouldn't climb for you, baby. With God first in our lives, our love will stand time after time. Our love will stand time after time, baby. I used to wonder if I truly deserve you. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Without a doubt, I stand here before you to say I do. To say I do, bang, bang. Today is our day. Today is our day for love, baby. Our day for love.
Today is our day for love, girl. Yes, it is. Our day. Today's our day. Today's our day for love. No reason, no season, baby, can change my mind. Yes, you are truly by far one of a kind. Girl, you are mine. Today's our day for love. Today's our day for love. Today. I recall the first time that we first met. It was so very special, baby. Now here we are today. You see, today's our special day, oh baby. Today is our day for love. Today is our day for love. Today you and I become one. Together forever, forever together. Today is our day. Today is our day. Today is our day. This is your day, my day, our day. Today. Oh, girls. Yeah. Today's our day for
Money Mac, Dale Fetty, what's up, y'all? And Mr. Reed, This how we do it, y'all. Y'all ain't even ready though. Hell nah. Mac, what's up now? Yeah, give it to him. Yeah. These niggas on life support, about to put a plug on them. Speaker in the trunk, bumping dope like a drug runner. Mac, music in my veins, I'm a blood donor. Racks, see them daily like a strip club on a fat. Give it crack, smokes rap, hang these motherfuckers out to dry like a coat rack. Back wet, got pulled like an abscess. Meet me at the block, I keep numbers like an address. Hustle ass nigga in the bed with a bad bitch. Sleep number 5, 10s, 20s in the mattress. Whole life's a crapshoot. Hell yeah, I'm gambling. Bet it all on black student, body up and grambling. DJ sampling, rappers just biting. Bitches in my pocket, out of gas, try to siphon. Touch more keys than Sean Ross on the Triton. Heavyweight, iron on the mic like Tyson.
My music is my motivation. My music is my motivation. My music is my motivation. So I gotta do what I gotta do. My music is my motivation. My music is my motivation. My music is my motivation. So I gotta do what I gotta do.
I'm old school like rockin' bells and LLs, dropping tail short dogs, 7-5 girls, step into my world, MCs and DJs, Rick Lee's and Freeway, shake cheese, it's all day, smoke weed and serve game, magazine is prime. Pretend this ain't my racket, I'm a menace when I'm rapping. There's no ending to this saga. Author of the rough, the raw, Tupac, I might fuck the world. I do
But I'm
this
starting
thing
to feel a
off the
little bit like
life,
Michael, you know. I think that I need to save some energy for tomorrow's show. So, Laura, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. And see y'all all tomorrow. Also, have a nice evening.
My music is my motivation.